Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let me make a little quick change right here. Good afternoon. Today is Thursday. We are in October. I can't believe it. The fall is here, one of my favorite times of the year, and it is noon. It is time for another session of Let's Talk Power Live, where I, Dr. Tanji, break down power in education in real time and in real ways. So I'm excited to be here today. Like I said, I am Dr. Tanji. I'm the CEO and I am the lead principal consultant of Liaison Educational Partners. And that is where we live at the intersection of culture. We live at the intersection of curriculum, and we live at the intersection of instruction, because we believe the breakdown in any one of those will cause a breakdown in all of them. So welcome today. If you're joining live, I'm so excited to see you. Please let me know that you're here, because I can't really see it. So you let me know if you're here. If you are watching on the replay, drop me a comment and let me know how this helped you. And of course, always, if you have not already done so, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share this with somebody else. Education and power in education is a very real thing. It's Thursday, and I have been missing my opportunity to tell you all what I'm thankful for. I had the exciting opportunity to spend some time with my grandson. He's 6 years old. He lives in North Carolina, and he is a Lego phenom. Loves Legos, builds. Last thing he does at night, first thing he does in the morning is build and play with his Legos. So as a grandparent, for all you grandparents out there, you know what a joy it is to spend time with your grandchildren. That's what I'm thankful for. What are you thankful for? It's always good to take time to be thankful. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started in our conversation today. You have reached a critical time in your school year. Whether you're a leader in a building, district, or state, and especially if you are in a classroom. This is October, and you have reached a critical point. Could be a breaking point for some, but here's what we're going to talk about today. October doesn't have to break your culture. It doesn't. We know things have heated up in buildings across the country, but it doesn't have to break your culture. So that's what we're going to talk about today. People ask me a lot, why do I talk about power, and what does it mean when I discuss power in education? And here's a really important quote that I'm going to share with you all. And here's the quote. It says, education is the instrument of democratic designs, and it is no less the instrument of power. The control of information, the shaping of understanding, and the influence of judgment are critical elements common to democratic design, power theory, and educational philosophy. That's by David Nyberg from his book, Power Over Power, which is one of the key research elements I use when writing my book, Instructional Power. Education is not neutral. If it were neutral, we would not be experiencing all of the hands in it as we are experiencing right now. If education were neutral, people would not be trying to control whether there are Bibles in classrooms, whether the 10 Commandments are on walls, and whether people can learn about the full, often challenging history of our country. We wouldn't. Education is a power center because what it does is it inevitably prepares people to enter a specific society. So it's not just that our education system is a power tool. Education anywhere is a power tool because citizens are made to be prepared to fit into a specific environment. And that's what education does in a lot of ways. And it also helps kids learn things and helps kids learn how to do things. But that's this idea of power. And then people always ask me, well, how do you define it? How do you understand what instructional power is? And this is my definition based upon the work and research I did. Instructional power can be understood as an educator's state, district, a building ascribed authority to afford or constrain access to an education. That's what it is. You have the power at any level in education that you hold. You have the power to afford, which means to give or constrain, hold back access to an education. And we do that in myriad of ways. In the smallest instances, what Deborah Ball calls those spaces, right? Those spaces in classrooms. She talks about discretionary spaces. We control the discretionary spaces. We have power in them, and we control other aspects of access to whether or not children are able to get the excellent education they deserve. So that's what power for me and my understanding is all about. And I talk very extensively about that in my book, Understanding Your Instructional Power. So in case you weren't with us in September, want to kind of just recap and give you an idea of some of the things that we talked about in September. So here's what we talked about. We talked about middle schoolers are not lazy. We know that in that particular time period of a young person's life, they get a really bad rap. And they are seen as lazy, they're seen as disaffected, they're seen as really hard to manage. But there are a lot of biological and sociological and physiological changes they're undergoing, which makes that sort of quote unquote true. But in the way that we frame it, it's really a misunderstanding. And then we really got into the environment that that control does not equal compliance, right? You have to have more than just control and compliance. And we talked about building agency is really building the brain. It's building what the adolescent brain needs. We talked about the engagement perception gap, misunderstanding between students and educators. And that came out of a study that was done where 56% of students believed and categorized and self-reported as being engaged in their work. And 36% of their teachers thought they were engaged. So there's this perception gap between what students believe themselves to be demonstrating engagement and what the adults believe engagement looks like. That could be some misunderstanding right there. And then we talked about voice and agency, and that was really important because there's a lot of conversation around agency and how important agency is and how important voice is. You want kids' voice. You want kids' voice. Well, voice is really about hearing them, hearing their opinion, letting them speak, letting them voice what they're thinking about. That isn't necessarily agency. Agency involves voice, but a student can have voice in a classroom building school system and not have agency. So agency is really about helping them build the productive self-advocacy muscle where they begin to act in their own and on their own behalf. And specifically with middle school, agency is very important because of where they are in their brain with the pruning that's going on. And then finally, we talked about how the structural shifts moving from elementary school into middle school creates some of the hardships and disengagement that we're seeing. They have more teachers, they've got more rules, they've got more classes, they've got more peers, and some of those peers they just don't know yet. So that's where we were left off in September, in case you missed it. And you can get all of this information on the YouTube channel. All of September is there. So go ahead and subscribe. Check out those actual, what were they called? Videos. Check out the videos so you can actually get a deep dive into what we covered in September. But we want to move now into October. And over the next few weeks, we're going to be talking very clearly and very specifically about this critical time in the year, because we are about to invite you to our October mastermind. It's going to be a free mastermind. It is geared towards leaders and then educators in 2 separate sessions, specific to your needs and what you're facing at your level in education right now. And we're going to really be covering what does it look like for October? Where are you in this critical time? And what we have learned from a lot of what we've been reading and studying is that the honeymoon is definitely over, right? So in September, things felt like you were hitting a stride. We know August is our honeymoon month. Everything is new. It's like having a new gift, right? You got a new gift, a bunch of new great young people. And then September, you're feeling good, you hit a groove. And then October comes. It's right before Thanksgiving and the Christmas break or the holiday break, if you name it that way. But it's really into the nitty gritty of school. Progress reports are coming out. On a leader side, you might be seeing some increases in discipline referrals, right? So I want to cover some major cracks over the next few weeks and then help you in this session and then in our mastermind sessions to really get yourselves through this time from the September to the November time. So crack number one, this disengagement and the hidden disengagement. Disengagement looks different in different stages. Sometimes it's very overt. And as young people get older and they have more tools, their disengagement goes underground. And then in crack two, there's some teacher and there's some staff morale, and it's volatility. It goes up and it goes down. It goes up and it goes down. And then crack three, I mentioned that already. You're going to see, or probably may already be seeing, this increase in punishment referrals. I'm moving my language from discipline to punishment. Discipline is something you want to build into students so they become disciplined. And we use discipline through means of referrals which it's a behavior correction tool. So rather than saying all that, I just call it a punishment tool. And you might see some increases in small offenses that in September would have only garnered a talking to. But now, as the environment begins to fray and cracks in the seam begin to show up, you're going to be seeing a lot more of those referrals. So what does that look like? Right? What we're seeing now, and by way of the data, and I want to make this so you can actually see it, right? So the data is showing us that by mid-fall, teachers report more misbehavior and absenteeism than the same time last year. That's out of EdChoice. They did a study in 2024. And you're also seeing student self-efficacy slumps in months 2 and 3 as the novelty of the school year begins to wear off and the intensity rises, right? The cognitive demand, quote unquote, rigor begins to rise. We see that particularly in middle school where the environment really does shift for them. And then 26% of students report inattention as a severe impact on morale, a shift that grows as the semester continues. So as you deepen into this first half of the year, the way the brain is working, particularly for our middle schoolers, if you're not building in novelty on the environmental side, the academic side, you're really going to begin to lose them. And then for my leaders out here, 85% of principals reported experiencing acute job-related stress. A level, I want us to think about that for a moment. That's twice the level of many other professions. We are in education having challenges. We are the federal government, our usually dependable means of federal financial support are being eroded. They take it away, they give it back, they move it over here, they make it a block grant, they do all of these other things with it. And that's creating stress because you have to redistribute your thoughts. One, you got to rethink your thoughts. But then you also have to consider, how will you continue services to young people when your money is funny, right? And that's something to really think through. And as a leader in a building and in a district in particular, it is causing heightened stress. So these are why things are feeling harder now. The environment is feeling the stressors of what's happening around it. And here is the next phase of that. That disengagement grows. 46% of educators say student disengagement is lower than before the pandemic. That's really interesting to consider from an instructional perspective and an environmental perspective. There is a heightened use of telephones. We know that in many schools, and we are seeing many schools and districts going to no phone policies and reporting positive results from that. We're seeing mixed results in other areas. We're seeing a lot of environmental stressors that we didn't have to deal with many, many years ago. So that's what's happening there on the why things are feeling harder. The next thing is morale is dipping. 99% of teachers report morale as low. Leadership pressures and stress are key drivers. They're saying their own morale is low. Our educators themselves are feeling stress and strain. We talk a lot about absenteeism on the student side, right? The absenteeism rises, and we know that when students miss school, their academic outcomes definitely show the impact of that. The other thing we've got to be clear about is when educator morale dips, their absenteeism shifts as well. They have more absenteeism than less. And then the pressure points, right? Referrals and parent calls increase. The use of I'm going to refer you for office. I'm going to refer you to our dean of students. I'm going to get you out of my classroom. That strategy of maintaining classroom order it increases this time of year. That's what we're seeing. And then we also talked about over 57% of schools anticipate referrals will increase this year. And that was based upon a report from last year. So if we are anticipating if we're anticipating increases in referrals, that means we're going to get that. We create the environment we are anticipating. We expect heightened referrals. Therefore, we will structure the environment in such a way that actually more referrals will happen as opposed to less referrals. We learned in September when we had our conversation around middle schoolers, more rules are not the answer. What the answer is to all of that is really having structured, specific conversations about building agency so that students who are becoming adults, leaning into autonomy, have a deeper understanding of what it means to productively advocate for themselves and lean into their agency building activities. What we tend towards is power protecting through rules and regulations. And we lean on areas of our handbook that feel safe for us. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And in my book, I really lay out how do you move from power protecting into agency development so that rules do not become your default. But these are the reasons you might be feeling that October is just tough right now. It's feeling harder. Your progress reports are coming out. The environment, the students have learned the environment now, right? They're comfortable. And now they're in the growth stage. And that growth stage is messy, particularly in middle school. It's a messy middle. And it's important to really understand rules in and of themselves are not the answer. So let's talk about the leadership lens. What can leaders do, and what's your lens right now? What is your challenge? Your biggest challenge is that your initial energy is giving way to strain, right? The morale is becoming more fragile. It's tenuous right now, this time of year. It's very, very tenuous as we are seeing and feeling the environmental shifts. I remember when I taught in New Jersey, they're a union state, and we really had more latitude in certain ways than I had than when I worked in North Carolina. But I remember October, really being hard because we had to shift our grading system. We went through a big change in our curriculum at that time. That wasn't in the beginning of the year. We had a lot of children who were moving classrooms around. And we know this, leaders, schedules get a little bit tight. And sometimes students have to move around. You have an entire wholesale set. I know at the end of September, you do your whole body count. And if your body count isn't at a certain level, then you might be losing teachers at this time of year. Your classrooms might be increasing in size due to that. Your, average daily membership numbers are shifting. And when that shifts, you are making decisions around what teachers to keep. Do you keep a full or do you keep a half? How do you do all of that and manage the morale, right? You might be splitting up departments and teams. That is on your plate. Those are your challenges. The morale is uneven and reactive because of the multiplicity of decisions you have to make. That's your lens right now. These are your challenges. And the risk here is slipping into control mode. When our environments feel stressful, when we are feeling the stress and strain and the push and pull of what feels like is not in our control, we lean into what feels safe. And a lot of times what feels safe is the protection. I know what my rules say. I know what the district allows and expects. I can lead into that and keep the order. It gets you compliance. And sometimes you need compliance. There are times when, let's just be clear, there are times when compliance is critical. But if compliance becomes commonplace, then your environment is going to suffer. So that's your challenge right now. So you have a choice as a leader. You can remain in your protective stance, right? Where you clamp down on your rules and you tighten your control and your positional power protection kicks in. Or you can lean into empowerment stance. What does that feel like? You can really lean into building agency, sharing your power, creating partnerships, both inside your building and outside your building. Those are your options right now. And a lot of times, leaders who are struggling, they may be new, may not feel, this may just be a tough time for them, right? We all go through seasons where our role is tougher than it has been in prior years. I remember I had every few years, every 3 or 4 years, I'd have an especially challenging group that helped me grow to my next level. And if you are an educator at any level, a leader, a teacher, and you are having a particularly challenging year, this may be your year of tremendous growth. So you have an opportunity. You also have a choice. You can lean into protection or you can lean into empowerment. So let's talk about some leader moves. Every week I give you power moves. I'm going to give you some leader power moves this week. First power move, want you to weigh your words. Words have weight, so you must weigh your words. What do I mean? Audit your words. Look for actions that signal possibility as opposed to those that signal control. Lean out of, well, this is what the district says. This is what the handbook says. Want you to lean into possibility. Determine if you're protecting self or if you're protecting the system through your language. So that's power move number 1. Power move number 2, reframe policies. Use your code of conduct or mission statement as a mirror exercise with your team. Ask yourself, who are we protecting? Where are we building agency and empowering ourselves, students, and families? Consider a lot of times we look at the handbook as just a guide. They do this, then this happens. They do this, then that happens. Let's go back and look at our handbooks and determine if our handbooks keep us mission driven, or are they power protecting tools for the system and for ourselves? And if they are, be willing to step into something that might allow for a reframe and a reset. Remember, more rules do not create the relational conditions to get past this October slump. And you want to make sure that you get through it and you come out on the other side more productive, more relational, agency focused, empowering to your students, staff, and families and community at large. So reframe your policies, do a deep dive on your policies, and then power move 3. Power move 3, deepen cultural knowledge. I know in this day and age, the word culture has become taboo. And that is because we tend to look at culture as race. Race is a part of culture. Race isn't the full culture. So I want you to think about your cultural assumptions. And I want you to go beyond food, flags, and festivals and ask yourself, what are my default assumptions? And those default assumptions about people, about cultures, and about the community. I want you to be asking, we all have them. We all have them because we do not see things as things are. We see things as we are. We are seeing things through the filter of our beliefs, of our experiences, and our interactions with others. So I want you to be asking yourself as the leader, what are your default assumptions? And then what do I need to know more about? Really dig into that. And in our leader session for our upcoming October Pivot, which is our free masterclass, first up on October 16th, we're going to focus on leaders. And one of the areas we're going to be looking at is culture. And by the end of that session, you will walk out and have a data to action tool that's going to really help you reset and revolutionize culture going forward. So this is power move number 3, to really deepen cultural knowledge, get below the iceberg, get past the food, get into the deep, launch into the deep, and learn something about your staff, student families, and communities that you may not have known. And I raised this a lot of times. I taught a class of young women. It was a complete class. It was 15 girls, African American, and the culture of that class could not have been more dynamic. Simply because we were all the same gender and we all identified racially the same did not mean that we inherently were of the same culture. We had some very different cultural frameworks that guided our lives. And I want you as a leader, if you're a leader listening to this, to really challenge and push yourself to really think through that. And number 4, I want us to think about creating pathways to agency. Examine your decision-making tree. Who is making the primary decisions? Whose ideas may be needed to expand opportunities and increase inclusion? Whose thoughts? Where are you leaning into that? Where are the voices? Are they centralized to that core group? We all have that core group. Are they centralized to that core group, or are they expanding? Launch out into the deep. Those are your power moves for today. So let's recap. What have we talked about today? In today's session, we talked about October represents critical shifts in your environment. Leaders often fall into protection mode as pressure mounts. right? Educators experience their own October slump. Students are experiencing shifts in demand. We can lean into agency development as a power move, and then want you to consider your words and go deeper with your cultural understanding. That's our recap for today. That's where we were. I want to invite you to join us again next week as we go even further into unpacking, I will say, unpacking this October pivot that's necessary. And then I want to give you some gems. Every week, I give you gems for your journey. First up, want to invite you to go ahead and make sure you register. Have you registered for our Leading Beyond Back to School? Really leaning into what leaders need to get past the beyond the back to school, past your back to school honeymoon. There is your QR code up there. Please go ahead and get that. You can also get it on our website. Here it is right here. There is our website, liaisoneducationalpartners.org. There's an entire page to give you some information. You can get it right there on our website. And then for today's tool, I want to always, if you're leaning into shifting your environment and want to lean into agency development, here is your understanding, your building authentic student agency tool. I want to get you your link for that right here. Let's see. Is it here? I may have to send you somewhere else. If you are interested, because I don't have my link up here and I do apologize. If you're interested in downloading this tool, and we've got lots of downloads, great feedback, it is really pushing the envelope and getting people clear on agency in their buildings and in their classrooms and districts. If you're looking for that, let me know. We'll make sure that you can get a copy of that right away. Would love to share that with you and then have a chat with you afterwards. And of course, you already know Instructional Power 101, our on-demand course, 7 modules, building the foundation of your own instructional power. Self-guided, there's the QR code, there's the link. Go ahead and join us for that as well. And then, of course, you need to get your book. Everything I'm talking about right here in our sessions every week is built upon understanding your instructional power. So get your copy of the book. When you do, be sure that you tag us, take a picture of it. And oh, by the way, if you haven't already done so, like, subscribe, and share this with someone you know. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Tanji, for another week of Let's Talk Power Live. I'll see you next week.